Henry Cavill holding Superman hostage for more money. Well, odds are it has to be something like that. That he's the one holding out. He's not happy with what they're offering. So just out of sheer guesswork, you would think that that's the deal. Why there was this push and rumor that he would appear at the Comic-Con thing, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I doubt that it could have been at the last minute he backed out. Jeez. But this has been going on a while. They wanted him in the Shazam movie. He wouldn't do it, and so they did that body double thing with the head cut off. And they've been using his version of Superman all over the place. So anyway, here we are back at Cosmic Book News. Matt McCline saying that he was at Comic-Con and he spoke with insiders close to Warner Brothers, who filled him in that Henry Cavill is holding out and wants a lot of money for a return to the Superman role, which is what is really holding things up regarding the Man of Steel, the DC films and universe. So according to his sources, Henry Cavill wants back as Superman. If he wants back, he can do so. It appears, yes, I think there's a lot of evidence there to say that Warner Brothers wanted him back. They had plans to move on, and I'll get to that in a bit, but the popularity of him being in the role is real. Sure, there's bots everywhere, but there's also a lot of real there. So anyway, so obviously there's a lot involved in what exactly that amount is. He doesn't know, and none of us do, except Warner Brothers and Henry. But for now, it seems more than what Warner Brothers is willing to pay, especially since Discovery and CEO David Zaslav took over and are now in charge. Yeah, keep in mind, Zaslav, I don't know if it's an official estimate, but he was looking to secure $3 billion through cuts. So on top of that he's doing that, then you got this guy saying, yeah, I want more money for the Superman role. So, you know, they're at that impasse there. So he continues. He says he also heard that Black Superman won't be happening, and even that Zack Snyder still has a shot at some kind of return, even though Jim Lee said different. Now, Jim Lee, what he said was an answer to the question, and he responded to it as an answer to the work that he did on the Snyder films. So he did artwork for the storyboards and whatnot, and he did not storyboards, but I think like pitch ideas, and especially for the sequels to the Justice League film that Zack Snyder did. So he saw those at a museum or art gallery display they did, and it showed what the ideas were at the time. Snyder has since said that would not be the plan going forward, but nevertheless, that's what everybody points to is what the sequels could have been. And Jim Lee did the artwork for that. And he referred to that as like, but there's no plans for work to continue on that. So you could take it to mean that those sequels won't be done or anything like that, which seems pretty likely that that's the deal. But at the same time, he's referring to himself. You know, so you could, however you want to take it, you can, I guess. But the idea that this is the hammer down and that's it, it's over, never mind. Well, things keep happening. So you had the Rolling Stone article, which was trash, badly written, lazy done in the mathematics, and then they don't even reveal their own report because obviously it didn't back the premise of the article. Stuff like that, the personal animus the author of the article has. And then you had the rumor about Superman, or Henry Cavill's going to show up at the Comic-Con, and then he does it. Oh, well, so. But then there was that Zack Snyder's going to do this cartoon. Well, maybe he did it years ago. Years? Maybe. I don't know. But there's still a relationship there for some reason. So this is I don't know is the best answer. To say it's done for sure, really can't. To say it's definitely coming back, this is all in the works. No, there's no works. They seem to be still in a state of mess and chaos. And a lot of it is because of all the scandals and with Amber Heard and Ezra Miller going nuts. All that stuff, you know. So plenty of messes around. But anyway, but he informs says, hey, look, these are big time Snyder supporters that he was talking to. They despise Jeff Johns. Well, see, Jeff Johns gets a lot of crap. I have seen nothing where he deserves it. At worst, he was an opportunist, but good Lord, water's wet. That's Hollywood. They're all doing that. But all the stuff about, racism was absolutely ridiculous. If you know anything about the guy, just brief bio. And even much as I despise Joss Whedon, he's an asshole. He's not a racist. That was all BS. And to lop Jeff Johnson, that was absolutely unfortunate. Didn't like what they did with the movies, but how much of that was really him? How much was he really in charge? I think he was just put there. Oh, that's a DC Comics guy, and that was it. Everyone dreaming of being the Kevin Feige, and none of them became Kevin Feige. So that's all that was. But this business of hating him and stuff, I've heard nothing about what he did directly. Ray Fisher crying that the boss called him in and said, "Hey, you don't go over my head like that and screw around with this, and you got to suck it up and everything." Now, that's everybody's job. Everybody goes through something like that when you do that. And he didn't listen. So, he was right about Joss Whedon being an a-hole. The racism stuff, he just pulled out of his ass. I was told that Dwayne Johnson wants to take over the DC Films universe. Well, yeah, it certainly sounds like it. Johnson and his production team produced Black Adam and the Shazam movies, yes. And I didn't know, but they apparently are producing the DC Leagues of Super Pets, which I've never had any real interest in. But that's under their belt, so that's interesting. And happened to manage Cavill. Yeah, so guess who their Superman is? Yeah, it would be Henry. But of course, all that depends on how well Black Adam does at the box office and is received by the fans. The general consensus at Comic-Con for fans is that they're really excited about Black Adam. It was the cooler of the two trailers, and it has the Justice Society in it, which is really exciting. And the Doctor Fate scenes look really cool. That's really an excellent looking Dr. Fate. And I'm really interested in that. But I'm the comic book guy. I know the Justice Society. I know those characters and all that sort of stuff. The average moviegoer has no idea who those people are, except that, hey, there's Dwayne Johnson, and it looks cool. So that's going to have to be enough to sell it. But man, oh man, if they had this guy here in it and could say that, yes, Superman will be in there, even if it's just a cameo to set up a sequel where there's an actual battle between the two and that sort of thing. Well, that's it. You've got a hit on your hands on the way, even though no one's seen it. But they couldn't seal the deal. But hopefully it does well. If that's the case and Dwayne Johnson gains more power over all this, it's pretty much a done deal. Henry Cavill will be back as Superman. So, future DC Films remains universe up in the air. So, he chatted about J.J. Abrams, and he reminds everyone that in San Diego Comic-Con 2019, he had heard all this stuff, and it turned out to be true. He was pretty spot on this. And Abrams and Bad Robot came in and infiltrated Warner Brothers and the DC Films and got Sarnoff in there. That was his pick to be the CEO. And then just sat on the properties and did nothing, really. All the ideas he was pitching sounded awful. Race swaps and all that superficial virtue signaling exploitation is all he had to cover up the fact that he didn't have any idea of what to do with these characters. And Zaslav comes in and, hey, what you been doing? Paid you a lot of money, you got nothing. And canceled his sci-fi film or series that was enormously expensive, which apparently was all he really wanted to do. And so probably dodged a massive bullet with the crap that he would have delivered. But still, geez, the money wasted on that. So anyway, so a lot of the WB stuff seems to be up in the air. With Discovery taking over, there seems to be nothing really concrete until all the recent DC movies are released. Yeah, that's true. You're just going to have to see what happens. Whichever performs well will give them an idea of which direction to go. Aquaman 2 will definitely come out. The Flash, I don't know. So far, Miller's been quiet. Nobody knows where he is, but good Lord, that's a bomb that could go off any minute. it looks really bad. Hopefully it's much ado about nothing except just stupid idiocy, but man, it looks really dark. But anyway, but fans hate them. Yeah, well, Amber Turd, I think, is gone. Ezra Miller, the expense it would take to reshoot it without him would be pretty bad. But considering the money, they're like, Henry Cavill wants his paycheck. Yeah, but we need the scratch to reshoot this. So it just keeps getting worse. If somehow they just release it with him in it, but the idea of him returning for a sequel or anything, no chance. And, it's all terrible. But that Flash movie is designed to reboot their DC universe and change things. So people are hoping Grant Gustin gets in. I don't think so. He says, I doubt that would happen. There may be a new actor, either reshot into that movies, definitely probably for any future Flash movies, but I don't think it'll be Grant. Regarding Henry Cavill wanting more money, there seems to be a huge resurgence in popularity. Yeah, he's become a big star since Witcher. But this is a thing that I keep remembering too. He talks about that he pitched a new Superman movie with Mission Impossible director Chris McQuarrie. And WB turned down because of the Abrams. Yeah, Abrams came in and sat on all that stuff and blocked anybody else. We could have had Superman movie by now. This pissed off Chris McQuarrie quite a bit and probably shut the door on having anything to do with him. And obviously it pissed off Henry Cavill. So this is the movie he probably really wants to do, whatever it was. And I don't know how things would work. Legally, they might have to pay Chris McQuarrie since it was his idea, more or less, even though he wouldn't be a part of it to get this. But this is something that might also, I would think, on top of whatever the money he wants for it, would be, this is the type of Superman movie he wants to do, whatever it is. And they're like, oh, man. And for some reason, they're hurting for money. Gee, I wonder what happened. Zaslav has said a big priority is doing Superman right. Yeah, but Henry Cavill is the one everyone points to as who should be Superman. So we'll have to wait and see how things play out. But again, from what I'm told, the ball's in Henry's court. Yeah, so he would have to accept what they're able to pay and then give up on his idea of what the movie, it's like one or the other. Maybe if he's willing to come in down on the pay for the movie idea, that might be the better outcome. But then again, how does it fit in with what they're trying to do and all that? I don't know. They've been wanting him to do cameos, and he wasn't interested in that. He wanted to make damn sure he got his own solo movie. So that would be another company to do the cameos. I don't see why that's a problem. But then again, how does it affect what the movie and stuff like that? We'd have to work that out. But yes, the idea that they want to move on from him and all that stuff. No, they've been trying to get him back. They just didn't want to pay him. And they didn't want to do the idea that he had. And that's Abrams' interference. So once again, Bad Robot spoils the well. And they're going to pay a long time for that. But then you see things. His costume shows up in Shazam. And it showed up in Peacemaker. So, they're open to having him back. It's just they can't agree to the terms. Meanwhile, their plan was Supergirl. And this had been running around for quite a while, even before we knew about Supergirl being in a Flash movie or, Sasha Calle being cast. Now, he's going in. There was a screen test that talks about the plot leaks. And Matt McClellan seems to be a little late to this. I've read the whole plot. Sounds pretty legit. And he goes on about how they're going to redo Man of Steel in it. And he seems to not understand exactly. But the way I understood it is that the Earth that Barry ends up to where he meets his other self, they have their own Kryptonian invasion from Zod and Faora. So the whole thing plays out pretty much like it did, except there's no Superman. They're wondering why is it there? And taking a nod from the Flashpoint comics, they find that there's this Kryptonian being held in a government facility, and they go to free him, but it's not him, it's Supergirl. So Apparently, Zod killed Kal-El while he was a baby, which is what he was trying to do in Man of Steel before, you know, the rocket launched and he got away. But then, little did he know that his cousin was also launched, and so now there's a Supergirl on Earth, and they fight. Apparently, he didn't read the part where in the plot of the movie they do fight, and they go up against Zod. Michael Keaton's Batman suits up and goes up against him as well, and gets killed. Supergirl doesn't snap Zod's neck. Zod snaps her neck. So she dies. All that's left is the two Flashes, and they try to change events. And the original Flash from, you know, Zack Snyder's Flash realizes they can't change time. No matter how many times they do it, the events may change, but ultimately the result's the same, whatever. And the reason is that the other Flash, the one he meets in this alternate timeline world, has fallen in love with the Supergirl and wants her back, and keeps trying to change it, and ends up becoming evil. His future self shows up. He's like the Black Flash or whatever. He's, you know, the villain, and they battle it out. And ultimately, Barry wins. The first Flash, if you will, and returns home, and everything seems to be more or less the same, except suddenly Michael Keaton's there, and he's the Michael Keaton Batman, and he's like, what? And Supergirl's there, and he's like, what? And apparently the Michael Keaton Batman and the Supergirl remember that they're from an alternate timeline, living in his timeline, and that sort of thing. And he's left, well, I don't know how this happened or whatever. And there's a scene where he has a cameo with Aquaman. He tries to explain to Aquaman what's happened, but Aquaman doesn't understand it. And apparently, of course, from his point of view, I'm guessing the Michael Keaton Batman was always Batman. You know, he just does, you know, and that's how they did it. There was a scene where Supergirl shows up and says, I want to show you something. And Barry turns to look at what she's showing him, and his eyes bulge out, and he's shocked to see what it is. Some had suspected that that was supposed to be a scene for Henry Cavill to do a cameo and show that Superman was still alive in this world, so they could have both, and you could have Superman and Supergirl like it's supposed to be, as far as instead of her just replacing him altogether. And then, of course, you heard that there was also the scene where the Ben Affleck Batman calls to Barry and says, you've got to find us, Barry, find us. And so that he still exists, but it's he's in some other universe. He's not really home. He's in some new created, merged universe, whereas the Ben Affleck Batman is elsewhere, trapped in the nightmare world and all that stuff. So that's how that played out, from what I've heard. He's got some similar things here, but it's missing a lot of details about what they would do. It does go on that most people who saw it thought it was pretty good, and for what it is, for what it's worth, Ezra Miller does a good job, despite it's his version of Flash, which really isn't Barry Allen, but nevertheless, for the purpose and context of the film, that he apparently did a good job, which just makes it all the more sad that it's all ruined by his whatever mental disorder and perhaps drug abuse. I don't know. But that's the situation they're in. So there you are. The main thing here is if they can reach a deal, Henry Cavill will be back as Superman.